person who gave that zakah while in the state of ruku was Imam Ali. So our evidence now, it seems as though it's not just some made up thing, the Shia doctrine. We have legitimate validity, we have legitimate arguments to suggest why there is that difference. But at the end of the day, as I said, and inshallah, we always remember that we should hold fast into the rope of Allah, because there are differences, whether it's Shia, Sunni. Within Shia there's differences, within Sunni there's differences, but we are all brothers. And anyone who makes takfir of another, the Prophet said, one who does takfir of another is himself a kafir, which is scary. So we should never do that, because only Allah knows what is in the heart of the believer. Only Allah knows who is professing to the faith or not. As the Prophet said, did you open his heart and look inside? And we don't, do we? So the first thing, as I said, is the argument of successorship. And again, historically, when we see how the caliphs were chosen, there were four very different ways. So none of them chose the style of the previous. So the first caliph was chosen based on a particular group of people, and other main prominent companions weren't there, such as Imam Ali, such as Salman al-Farsi. They weren't there. So clearly it wasn't a vote where all the companions had a say. Second caliph was chosen by the first, third caliph was chosen by a group of 6, fourth caliph was chosen by pretty much the ummah, the people, all the companions. 4 different ways. Again, if the Prophet didn't choose, why did the ummah? If the ummah realized that there's an importance to it, didn't the Prophet have that foresight? So the second main thing and the crux of the argument of Sunni Shia, because every Muslim, whether you're Sunni or Shia, believes in the Quran. In the opening, before this talk, the brother read the Quran. Sunnis and Shia go to Hajj. Sunnis and Shia pay zakah. Sunnis and Shia do salat. Sunnis and Shia fast in the month of Ramadan. Sunnis and Shia believe there is no God but Allah and have Tawheed, the unity, monotheism as the primary principle. And the previous discussions, we talked about things like what is Islam. So the second thing is this importance that the Shia give to Ahlul Bayt. And sometimes it says it's some obsession that they have with the Ahlul Bayt. What is this obsession with the Ahlul Bayt? Why? Why do they always say salawat? Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Well, firstly, again, from the standpoint of the Shia argument, is that it's not the people that give that importance. It was the Prophet himself. It was the Quran itself. It was the Quran that said that indeed, O Ahlul Bayt, O holy household, we have purified you with a thorough purification. It is the Prophet himself who highlighted the great esteem of his prophetic household. It was the Prophet himself that highlighted the stature and the status of the Ahlul Bayt. For example, when they went and met the Christians of Najran. So it is not us, but it is the Prophet. And so as Muslims, we follow the Quran and we follow the Prophet. So we say that we're doing exactly the same. At the same time, all of the Muslims, they believe that the Quran is the book of Allah. It's authentic, it's hadith, untouched. Unfortunately, we do have some accusations that Shias believe in a different Quran, which is bogus. It's silly. But Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. All Muslims believe in the Quran, and then there's a difference. Quite often the repeated verses is hold fast to the Quran and the Sunnah, and the Shia say Quran and the Ahlul Bayt. So again, the response that the Shia gives is, of course the Sunnah is of paramount importance, but the hadith that we have in the books of narrations, whether it's of Sunnis or Shias, it clearly says that I leave behind you, hold fast to the Quran and the Itra and the Ahlul Bayt. And at the end of the day, the Ahlul Bayt, as I said, are mentioned in the Quran. And namely, the Ahlul Bayt, who makes the Ahlul Bayt? Because some say, was it this person, was it that person? It's namely the prime Ahlul Bayt, Prophet Muhammad, Imam Ali, Fatima Zahra, Hassan and Hussein. So again, we see slowly that this Shia creed or Shia faith has some legitimacy. They have validity, and they argue, they point from the Quran and the Sunnah. Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet, Quran and Hadith, Quran and prophetic Hadith, Quran and Aql. So in a nutshell, that was the main crux of the difference between Sunni and Shia. And inshallah, as I said, that of paramount importance is the acknowledgement that we are all Muslims. We should rid ourselves of this takfiri culture that this person is kafir. The Salafi says that the Sufi is kafir. The brothers from 92.1 FM, they say that the Salafis are kafir. They say that the Shias are kafir. This is terrible. And as I said, we have a scary hadith from the Prophet Muhammad that whoever says and declares takfir on someone else is himself a kafir, which is scary. So inshallah, we rid ourselves of such terrible cultures which was never there at the time of the Prophet, despite the disagreements. As I said, we say we are Shia of Ali. And it's fair to say that. Some say, no, all the companions, for example, they were on the same levels, they're all great, they're like nujum, they're like stars, any one of them you cling on to, you will be rightly guided. But historically we do see that the companions, some of them disagreed with each other. Some of them hated each other. Some of them killed each other. There are battles that took place at the time of the Khilafah, at the time between Muslims. We have the battle of Nahrawan, we have the battle of Siffin, we have the battle of Jamal, that on the one side we have Prophet Muhammad's cousin Imam Ali, on the other side we have Prophet Muhammad's wife. So then it's fair to say, for example, that I am a Shia of Ali, for example, because there does seem to be some difference. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So briefly, some questions, and if anyone has questions, feel free as well, but I have been getting some messages, and I will start, inshallah. Yeah, of course, please. Can a Shia girl get married to a Sunni boy? Most of our scholars and jurists say, of course, yes, because they're all Muslims. Some scholars say just be conscious that if for example, the Sunni brother doesn't agree or dislikes the fact that the girl is Sunni, then naturally there may be conflict, there may be disagreements. But in the outset, most of our scholars, without a doubt, say, yes, of course, you can marry any Muslim. Do the parents get judged because they married a Sunni? If they let their kids marry a Sunni? My uncle, who's a sheikh, studied in Hawza in Qum in Iran, married a Sunni. My auntie, who's a Sayyid, from two sides, from the mum's side and the dad's side, is the child descendant of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, married a Sunni man. So it depends on your own biases or whatever the case may be, but generally, as I said, the scholars say outright, ahlan wa sahlan. Sure. The sister said, obviously if a sister marries a Sunni brother, then the Sunni brother might want to raise their kids as Sunni, and that might cause conflict. So whether the person that wants to marry is the other person is a Sunni or even a Shia from a particular other, for example, school of jurisprudence, it could potentially cause conflict. But these are discussions to be had with the parents, with the scholars, and for everyone to realize that at the end of the day, what's important is the life of the two couples and the life of the children. If it will cause conflict, then it's a definite consideration. If it will not cause conflict, there are many brothers and sisters who are Sunni who have no prejudice, no bias in them. And when there is prejudice and bias, for example, we see that there were so many scholars that consider Shia as kafir, then of course, that's a consideration, and it's not very wise to do that. Yes, sister? And the Salafis kafir? Well, the Salafis call us kafir, some Shias call them kafir, the Salafis call the Sufis kafir, the Naqshbandis call the Salafis kafir, everyone calls each other kafir. And this in itself, as we see, is not a good culture. We might disagree with another, we might see that there's killings, one kills the other based on their creed and culture, but this is exactly the point where there needs to be knowledge and ignorance removed, because most people don't even know the difference. Most people don't even mingle with each other. And can we call them Nasibi? Nasibi means a hater of Ahlul Bayt. If they hate Ahlul Bayt, they're Nasibi. If they're not, then they're not. There's some Salafis that love the Ahlul Bayt. So we shouldn't use these blanket statements. The question was, why does the man allow 4 wives? This is not the question for tonight. Please ask the Sheikh, someone more knowledgeable, or just refer to Imam Hussein, who had many wives, and if we have a problem, sure, you can change it. Okay, just quickly, there's another few questions. Why do Shias consider Imam Ali God? Again, a very ridiculous accusation. There are no Shias that I have met in my life, and I've met thousands and thousands of Shias that consider Imam Ali God. Just baseless accusations thrown, just like baseless accusations are thrown at Muslims generally from the media. So there's no such thing. If there may be certain schools within Islam, I have heard that, for example, Alawis, but my Alawi friends, they say, no, there's no such thing. From Alawi friends, they said, I have heard that, for example, there's a particular branch within Alawi. No, the name thing. The one that, for example, Bashar al-Assad professes to. They say they are like that. Again, best to ask and refer to their scholars. I have no idea. But no, Shias don't believe Ali is God. That's Imam Ali, if anything, in history we see that he burnt someone for calling him God. So no, that's ridiculous. Another question here. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Your loudest of salawat, inshallah, this is the the chant that we do that sends blessings on Prophet and his holy household, and we have it in our salat, 5 daily prayers. We are obliged, Sunnis and Shias, they send the salawat. So, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Do we have a different Quran? Again, that's a silly one. No, we don't. You look at any Shia's bookshelf, it's the same Quran. They even use Qurans from Saudi Arabia. They have Quran from Iran, from Iraq, from Bahrain, wherever, Lebanon, whatever the case may be. If and one of the miracles of Islam is that Quran is untouched. From 1400 years ago, it hasn't been changed. If all the Qurans were burnt, la samahallah, if all the Qurans were destroyed, there will be thousands upon thousands of Huffaz who have memorized the Quran all at once. Sunni, Shia, Sufi, Wahhabi, Salafi, Deobandi, Naqshbandi, whatever the case may be, together they will recite the verses of the Holy Quran. Another question. Why do the Shias believe in muta? Isn't that prostitution? Ahsant. Surah An-Nisa verse 24, I believe. If you can double check now. 24? Anyways, firstly, the Shia say that it is in the Quran mentioned. Surah An-Nisa verse 24 to 26. Make it easy and we'll look at it. Secondly, without going into it too much, very simply, every single one of our Sunni brothers, even though sometimes, for example, Yasir Qadi, if you Google it, he says if you pay money to a woman and if this is not prostitution, I don't know what is. First of all, in Islam, even in normal marriage, we have mahar, we give money or we give a gift. Is that prostitution? No Muslim in their right mind would say yes. Secondly, very simple argument. Every single Sunni will say that it was allowed at the time of the Prophet. The difference is Sunni say it was banned, Shia say it wasn't banned. So if muta is prostitution, what the Sunni brothers are pretty much saying is when the Prophet did allow it, he allowed prostitution, la samahallah. So our brothers, whoever they may be, they need to realize what they are saying. This is wrong. So whether it was banned or not, what they're saying is at one point the Prophet allowed prostitution. Far is that from the truth. Why do the Shias believe that the Imams are pure, sinless and infallible? Isn't that shirk? In a nutshell, there are different arguments that are suggested for that. One is that first of all, the Prophet himself, firstly there's arguments within Sunni and Shia whether the Prophet was completely infallible, whether the Prophet was ma'soom, whether he ever committed a mistake, whether in legislation, whether in thought, were they open to it. First of all, the word infallible technically is incorrect. Infallible means incapable of falling, incapable of sinning. All humans, all prophets, all imams were capable of sinning, yet they chose not to. Simple. In the Quran, as I read the verse, that Allah said, not anyone else, that, O Ahlul Bayt, we have purified you with a thorough purification. I believe it's Surah 33, verse 33, that, who knows the verse? Ahsant. إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. So they are mutahharun. And another verse in the Quran says, none shall touch it, the Quran, except those who are purified. So the argument is the Prophet was infallible. The one that protected the message was sinless. They didn't commit sin. You and I, for example, we can go a day without sinning. We can go a year without sinning. Very difficult, because we do have hadith that kullu bani adam khata khata'in. All of the children of Adam commit mistakes or err. But we can see that every day, for example, we do have the capacity not to sin. We can extend that for a year. So why not the greatest of the people, greatest of humans, such as the Prophet, such as his Ahlul Bayt, that the Quran said he purified? Why can't they? Why is it so hard to believe that they never sinned? They were great people, and great people simply don't do bad things. And they were the greatest of the great people that we have in history. So if we have the greatest of greatest people, we put such a high level to our ulama, for example, then of course we can see very easily, rationally, that imams could also not sin. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Any final question before I continue? Yes, sister. Yes, inshallah. So tonight, the night of the 10th of Muharram, another question that often comes, why are the Shias obsessed with Imam Hussein, with Muharram 10 days? First of all, we have hadith to indicate that we should remember the tragedy of Imam Hussein. Second of all, just realize and think to yourself, imagine your mother and your family was killed. Would it be wrong for you to remember them the next year? Shed a tear? Imagine every year Australia as a nation, they commemorate Anzac Day for the death of their soldiers and respect of soldiers. That the world knows as well that they were in the side of error, that they attacked the Turks, for example, yet out of love, yet out of reverence for the struggles that they did, they hold commemorations year in, year out. Imagine Port Arthur massacre in Australia. Is it wrong to hold commemorations year in, year out? So first of all, there's hadith. Second of all, this was Imam Hussein, the grandson of the Prophet. The greatest tragedy, the greatest massacre in the history of Islam, the greatest calamity, that in a small span of 50 years, that the Prophet who said to Imam Hussein, such as you are the ark of salvation, you're Sayyid al-Shabab Ahl al-Jannah, you are Safinatun